Okay, hey, thanks for tuning into this little solutions video here, everybody. Just one thing before we get started, I'm going to go pretty fast through some of these problems, so please, feel free to stop and rewind the video if you want. I'm outdoors here behind the library at school. Because I am going to cover a lot of ground pretty fast. Okay, number one, we're solving some equations, and we got a solution of x equals -6 for the first one, and x equals this fraction 38/13 for the second one. Here's how the solutions play out here, okay? So I distributed the -2 on that side and got rid of the parentheses over here on the right. I'm gathering all my like terms together. I finally end up with -6x equals 36, and that's how I get -6 for x. On the other problem, I've got this one fraction equals another fraction, so we want to do this little cross multiply trick here, and when you do that you get 5 times x minus 4 equals 7 times 8 minus 3x. Gather your like terms together and you finally end up with 26x equals 76, and that's how we get 76/26, which I reduced down to 38/13. Okay, let's move on to the next problem. I got that on another page here. Here's the graph of that there parabola, and so I just made a table from -3 to +1 values for x, and when I plug those into the equation there, 2x squared plus 4x minus 6, when I plug those values in, I get these y values, I plot them out, and this is what the parabola looks like. Okay, so but nothing else to say about that. Let's move on to the next problem. And that would be here, these domain and range problems. Okay, we talked about these in class. Here's the domain for this first one. It is continuous from this point to this point. All these little open circles are filled in. So it goes everything from -3 to +3, but it doesn't include +3. That's an open circle there. The range is just the y values for these three little line segments, and that's -2, +1, and 3. Okay. Notice we always express it from the smallest number going up to the bigger number, small to big, left to right. And the next one is a vertical line here, and there's only one value in the domain, x equals +2, but the y values are all real numbers, goes forever up and down. The other graph here has, again, a range of all real numbers because of the arrows going up and going down, all real numbers for the range, but the domain is just from -2 to +infinity. So the arrows, there's an endpoint right there, a solid endpoint, so it does equal -2, but it goes all the way to +infinity to the right. Okay, let's see, here we got answers on this page right here. There's not really much work to show here. A negative exponent means a reciprocal, so that's 1/5 squared, or 1/25. We have a negative exponent only on the y variable there. The x doesn't have anything going on, so it just stays the same, but then we have 1/y squared, and just simplifies down to x/y squared. The next one, everything has got the negative exponent, so it's really just 1/xy squared, like that. So everything had the -2 on there. Then on this last one here, we talked about this in class. When you're multiplying terms together, you add up the exponents. So when you add the exponents for a, you get a -1. And when you add the exponents for b, you get a +10. So that's why we end up with b to the 10th over a to the 1st, or just a. Okay, here's the graphs here. I labeled the axes here. The volume, as the volume increases, the height increases also, but in beaker B, because it's so big and fat, it takes a lot more volume to get to the same height as A. And so they do have the same height eventually, but B takes more volume. C has a little bit of volume and it gets to a taller height, so it looks like that. Let's move to the next problem here. I put these on another page. Here's the solutions real quick. I was working outside here. The wind's giving me a little trouble. F of 5 equals 3. I have to use x equals 96 to make f of x equal 10. And then these problems here, g of -1 equals +2. And x has to be a 3 or a -2 to make g of x equal 6. We've got that worked out here. And that is right here. Here we go, sorry. So that's just replacing the x with a 5, that gets to be 3. Replacing x with a -1 it's a little tricky there with those negative signs. Don't lose them, okay? There's a minus sign there, and so that stays there, even though this -1. So don't lose your minus signs. That gives us a +2 for our answer. To make this function equal 10, I would square both sides, and that'd give me 100 equals x plus 4, so that makes x equal 96. Over here, to make this equal 6, it's a quadratic, so I'm stuck again solving a quadratic, and this one, fortunately, though, factors to x plus 2 times x minus 3, and that means that x equals -2 or x equals +3. All right, let's move on. Domain and range for those next couple of graphs. Once again, domain is just everything left, right, and since the arrow goes to the left, that means -infinity over here and +6 on the right. So that's an expression for the domain. Kind of funny thing about here, the range is pretty much the same thing, except that y can actually equal +6 right at that point right there. The range is the y values. It goes down to -infinity all the way up to +6 on the graph. So that's our domain and range. The next one, the domain has got all real numbers. It goes forever left and right, but it just varies between -3 and +3, and so that's the expression for our range right there. Lowest y value and highest y value, and just write them with the y values in between right there like that. All right, moving on to the next one. You do not have to do this problem. There won't be a problem like this on the test. Just real briefly, I'll show you the answers. Here's the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts for that graph. Okay, there you are. And x-intercept and y-intercept for that graph are right there. Okay, enough said about that. There won't be a question like that on the test. So, problem 113, solving these equations. All right. There's another fraction equals a fraction kind of an equation. So you cross multiply and you get all your terms together. You're going to get this value here, 44/13. You do all that right. Over here, this is kind of an interesting question. If you add 1 to both sides, now we have 3/x equals 9. So that means that it's also kind of like a cross multiply deal. 3/x equals 9/1. So that means 3 equals 9x. And 3 equals 9x, if you divide both sides by 9, you get 3/9 equals x, and better to write that as 1/3. The next equation, part C there, let's see, is right here. This is kind of a tricky one. There won't be one like this on the test, I promise you, but the answer is actually 42/5, or 8.4. And that's what you get if you do all that. You can stop the video and check out those steps if you'd like, using the lowest common denominator of 6 to add those fractions together, and then again cross multiplying. So let's move on to the next problem, though. Creating a graph of this here parabola, x squared minus 2x minus 8. Again, I used a table of values, and I got it to look like this. So this is what it is. The lowest point is down there at 1, -9. That's my vertex. That's a 9 right there. And my y-intercept is -8. These are not really in order, as you can see here for the x values, but that's how I plotted the points, and that's what the graph looks like. Let's move on. I skipped 115, but 116 is solving 4 different equations. They're all quadratics. So let's check these out here. This first one, factors. We had to do this one actually in another problem. Pretty common little quadratic. Factors out like that, and so you get x equals 3 and x equals -2. All right, this one, however, you had to use a quadratic formula on, so set it equal to 0 first. Extremely important. It won't work if you don't do that. So there's your b as -12. That means +12 goes into the quadratic formula, and then working out b squared minus 4 times a times c, which is -8. Doing all of that arithmetic right there gives you 144 plus 160, okay? 12 squared plus, and then this is 160 here. So that gives you 304 when you add those together. And so it's just 12 plus the square root of 304 over 10. That's all you got to do. That's your answer. You don't have to do any other number crunching. Just work it out like that, and that's good enough. It's actually perfect. And the next one does factor as well, though. X minus 10 times x plus 2, and so that means x equals 10, and x equals -2. The next one does not factor, so 2 of them factored and 2 of them didn't. And so you got this Again, b is negative in the equation, so that means it's positive in the formula. All right, and so there's b squared minus 4 times a times c. That all, when you do all of that, equals 121, which does have a perfect square root of 11. So it's 5 plus or minus 11 over 4. Now you should not leave this one alone. This one can be simplified, and you should definitely simplify it, because 5 plus 11 over 4 makes 16 over 4, which reduces down to 4. And then 5 minus 11 over 4 makes negative 6 over 4, or negative 3/2. So these are your solutions. You would be wrong to leave it as this in this form right here. Okay, we don't want to leave it like that. When you can get nice exact answers this way, you should do that. We got a couple more problems to do. Actually, just one more problem to do about the guy who spends money on comic books every week. He starts off with $200. I'm letting W represent the number of weeks in my equation here, and he spends 15 bucks a week. So M, which stands for money, equals 200 minus 15 times W. All right. And the question is saying, how many weeks will it be before he doesn't have any money left? Well, that would mean then that this 200 minus 15W equals 0. And if you solve that, you end up with just a little bit more than 13. Actually, after 13 weeks, he supposedly has 5 bucks left. So the precise answer would be 13 and 1/3 weeks. But that's, so it's something like that, a little bit more than 13 weeks. And the graph of that looks kind of like this. This would be dollars up here, and this would be weeks down here. And it's just pretty much a straight line with a slope of negative 15, and a little bit more than 13 weeks. Okay, hopefully that was helpful. Please rewind the video and look at other problems there if you need to. And good luck. Bye-bye.